welcome to another edition of the 24th Floor. I'm Ruben Diaz. We're rounding out August with so many of what we all enjoy, so many games, what we all enjoy. It's football season, obviously, the most wonderful time of the year. We got a couple of guests we got to get to here in a second, but first, before we do that, you know how we start every show. Let's toss over to Richard Denson for today's Big Idea.
That's right, Ruben. It's almost that time. We are a couple of sleeps away from the true start to college football. It's week one. Let's roll that big idea. Let's start right here in the 901. How about them Tigers coming off one of its best seasons in recent memories where they finished 11-2 and won their bowl game? The Tigers are back at it, looking to replicate that when they start their voyage this Saturday against the FCS's Chattanooga Mocs. All eyes will be on the new QB1, Brandon Lewis, the sixth-year transfer from Nevada and Colorado. He's got the keys to the Tigers offense, and with him being a dual threat, he looks to bring a new dynamic.
Every single one of those guys in the receiver room, we've all put in a lot of work together. We've been getting tons of reps together, so I feel like our chemistry has just skyrocketed since when I first got here. It's made me a lot more confident in not only myself, but in them too, and I feel like it's made them more confident in themselves and in me as well, as our chemistry just keeps getting higher and higher as the season will go on. I feel pretty comfortable right now, though.
All right, you heard it from the man himself. Feels real comfortable right now. Now joining us on the program, a man who knows all about the Tigers, knows them inside and out. He'll be there this Saturday. He's the Memphis football beat reporter for the Commercial Appeal and a frequent friend of the program. Jonah Dillon, welcome to the show, young man, I should say.
Mr. Jonah.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Jonah, let's get started. What are you expecting? It's a new era, so to speak, when it comes to QB1 for the Memphis Tigers. What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, definitely a different sort of offense, or at least some wrinkles from what we saw in the past 4 years with Seth Hennigan, because like you guys mentioned, Brandon Lewis is a dual threat quarterback. He can run the ball a lot, and I think we're going to see that. I think in terms of the whole offense, we're going to see a lot of different stuff. We're going to see side-to-side movement. The word we've heard from pretty much every coach throughout the offseason is speed. And so I think we're going to see that at receiver. We're going to see that definitely at running back. And we're going to see that at the quarterback. So I think it'll be exciting to watch, especially in the first time on Saturday.
Jonah, from what you've seen in training camp, do you think the Tigers offense will lean more run-heavy with all the different running backs they have? Or do you think they'll really let Lewis go and just kind of test him and let him air it out?
I think they'd like to run the ball a lot. Obviously, a lot of it's going to depend on the offensive line. How effective can they be? But they feel good about that. I think with the running backs, you look at Sutton Smith and Greg Duose and that kind of tandem, they both have the ability to do a lot of different things. So I think, yes, we're going to see them get the ball a lot, but it might be passes out of the backfield. It might be lining them up at receiver. It might be side-to-side stuff. So I think the running backs are going to be a big part of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean run the ball up the middle. You know, it means a lot of different things with what they can do in the offense.
Yeah, so you've been able to see Brandon Lewis up close and personal. You've watched him, you covered Seth Hennigan. What do you see as, other than being dual threat, do you see him as a guy that's ready to take the reins and kind of move forward with this team?
Yeah, he's somebody who's obviously, the experience is the thing that you hear other than the dual threat ability. I think experience is the main word. With him, 35 starts in college football across his time at Colorado and Nevada. Obviously, it's a cliche, but you can't teach that, right? He's actually older than Seth Hennigan. He graduated high school a year before him, which is crazy to think about because it feels like Seth Hennigan was at Memphis for forever. But I think that's a big part of it is the experience. The question is, how is he going to do on a team that has high expectations? Because he has not been on a winning team in his entire career across those two schools. Now he's at a place and he's the quarterback at a place that thinks they can win double-digit games as they have the past couple of years. And so that leadership and that ability, I think those are the things that I'm thinking about as they go in the season, especially as they get further in. And the expectation is, to win pretty much every game.
Yep.
So I think a lot has been put on the Tigers offense, and justifiably so, with Brandon Lewis and at QB. But what do you expect out of the defense? I know they got some big guys coming back this year that are going to be big-time players.
Yeah, a lot of new faces too. I mean, I think that's the story on both sides of the ball. Really one full-time returning starter on both sides of the ball. William Whitlow on defense is a big-time returner because he was a first-team all-conference guy last year on the defensive line, went in the portal and then decided to get out of the portal and come back to Memphis. And that's obviously a huge guy to have returning. I think the linebacker core is something I'm looking forward to seeing. Entirely new. Everybody from last year is gone, or at least 3 starters. But if you look at the caliber of player they're bringing in at linebacker, really, really productive guys at other schools. Everett Rousseau, Drew Watts, Cam Burden, a couple of the names, and then obviously Sam Brumfield, who comes from Virginia Tech. All these guys, you look at their stats from last year, they've proven it at a certain level, and it's kind of different. On offense, we're looking at guys and thinking, okay, they haven't really proven it, but we know they have that ability. On defense, they have proven it, and the question is, how's it all going to work together? What's the chemistry going to be like across kind of that defense? But there's a lot to like, and if you want to look for positive signs, I think on defense there's a lot.
Coaches will always tell you the defense always looks great early on, right? Because, they chase the ball, whereas the offense has to build chemistry. Is there a lot of excitement then around with Coach Silverfield about what this defense can do as far as setting the tone early in the season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this, defense for Memphis, if you go back the past couple of years, even back to when Mike Norvell was here, I mean, obviously it's an understatement to say there was room for improvement if they wanted to get it. They did that last year. They improved from a defense that had a lot that it could have done better, but there's still a lot that can be better, especially in the secondary. I mean, again, looking at almost an entirely new group of players, but there's room for improvement in terms of how they played in some of those big games last year. And off the bat, even you go back last season, this defense was humming the first couple of weeks of the season with the different things they were doing under Jordan Hankins as defensive coordinator. Now he's got a year under his belt with this system, and he's got a better idea of how to kind of handle week-to-week stuff. And so I think the first couple of weeks of the season, we're definitely going to see a lot of positive signs from this defense.
We talk about excitement and anticipation. For Silverfield and crew, they're trying to build off last season, which, as we said, was one of the best seasons, if not the best season in regular season-wise in Tigers football history. Do you think building off of that, they're trying to reassert themselves as a contender, especially after those flirtations with the Big 12?
Yeah, I think they definitely want to do that. And I think, look, you look at where this program is and how they've played the past couple of years. This is a team that probably should be in the conversation, at least for the conference title every single year. And realistically, that means probably the college football playoff, or at least you have a shout kind of with, depending on how things go in with Boise State and the Mountain West and those other conferences. And so I think it's fair to expect them and to look at the schedule and say, every game you can sit there and say, this is a winnable game. Even the Arkansas game, that's a winnable game, especially at home. Now, some of these teams in the conference are pretty good and they've improved, Navy, South Florida, Tulane, all going to come play at Memphis this year. And those are tough games. They're not walkovers. But the Tigers can easily win all those games. They have the ability to do that, and they have the ability to win this conference. And so I think it makes it an exciting season, even though there are so many unknowns.
Now, winning obviously is important. You're trying to move conferences and make moves, and there's more money in the bigger conferences. There's more bigger TV deals. But there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it when you're trying to make that move, right? So what are some of the other hurdles that Memphis has to battle to be able to make a conference jump?
Yeah, timing is a big one, right? I mean, we look at all these things with conference realignment, and it kind of depends on, was there a big move that set off a chain reaction of other moves? Like, you look at so much of what happened over the past couple of years, Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC is what set off a ton of conference realignment moves, including the moves that, all those teams that left the American, UCF and Cincinnati and Houston. That was because of that. You're looking to backfill after other big moves in the past. And so I think for Memphis, you got to be in the right place at the right time. And this was not the right time. I think they feel like they've improved a lot of stuff. You look at the stadium renovation, you look at the quality of their football team, you look at the academics. Those were the things that in the past, everybody said that's the reason why Memphis can't get into a better conference. They've improved those things, but again, you've got to figure out the right situation. You need a conference that wants to expand. And so the Big 12 stuff, obviously, they weren't actively looking for it at the time, and I think that hurt Memphis.
I'm glad you brought up the stadium renovations, Jonah, because I live by the Tiger Stadium, and I'm always thinking, how is the ongoing renovation and construction, how does that affect the game day environment? Now that they are further along and it looks like we're getting closer to when it's supposed to be done, still, now that we start another season with that in the background, do you think that kind of plays a factor into how the game day environment will be on Saturdays compared to other schools?
It might for this year. I mean, I think in the future, they think that, once the renovations are complete, you're looking at a different sort of experience, like you said. And that is important for everybody, because one of the things that people have talked about with stadiums and how it relates to conference realignment is, visiting fans and stuff, showing up to a game and being like, really, this is the stadium this team plays in. Now, there's a lot of obviously historic college football venues that maybe aren't the nicest places to visit. But I think that's how you show off your stadium. That's how you show off your program and your team and all those things. When we talk about conference realignment, so much of it is perception. And so that is why it can be very important and might be very important going forward. That's the thing we've talked about in the past, the reason why Memphis wasn't attractive to some of these conferences. And that was one of the, that was a huge reason of why they weren't. And so potentially a thing that could change things moving forward.
Jonah, you are the man. We appreciate all of that insight and all of that knowledge. We know you're going to be on the sideline Saturday, or maybe up in the box, staying out of so you don't get hit. But we will check back in with you next week and get another Tigers update as we continue to follow the Tigers throughout the rest of the season. Thank you for your time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, big dog. All right, time for a quick break. When we come back, though, we're going to be diving headfirst into SEC football as Ole Miss gets ready to kick off. We'll have more about them right after this.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stay informed, prepared, and connected with ABC 24 and 24 Plus. Coverage that alerts you to what's coming and how it will impact you. Watch extended weather coverage on 24 Plus. The 24 Plus TV app. Streaming 24/7. Local news from the team you trust on your time.
Rain showers through the day today, and we're starting.
Track how the weather will impact your day.
Rain coming in tonight into tomorrow.
Extended, continuous coverage of breaking news, live from the scene. Go deeper with in-depth interviews and exclusive reporting. All the local news you need, live or on demand. 24 Plus. Complete coverage of your local news, weather, and more.
Here comes our first batch of rain.
Some severe thunderstorms and even several tornado warnings.
I think the bigger issue is going to be the wind gusts. So you start getting some branches knocked around. You could definitely see some power outages today. Those storms could pack a punch.
It's not just the thunderstorms, it's the fact that this low pressure is so strong.
It's how big that storm system was.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stream extended coverage on 24 Plus. Download on your TV and watch for free. When news breaks, watch 24 Plus. See the story as it's happening. Be on the scene faster than ever before. Live updates from the team you trust. Stream breaking news on 24 Plus. Download free on your TV now.
All right, before we move on, we got to acknowledge the fact did a little new set, set change, wardrobe change, so to speak, for the set. Hopefully it gives you a better, more relaxed, chilled environment.
Relaxed, you know what I'm saying? Kick your feet up and everything, show our kicks and everything, you know what I'm saying?
So continuing our conversation, let's move down to Oxford. It's officially game week. The Ole Miss Rebels take on Georgia State Saturday at 6:45.
And now this will be their first meeting ever between the Rebels and Georgia State. The Panthers, Ruben, finished 3-9 last season, but they did get a big upset win over another SEC opponent, Vanderbilt.
And Vanderbilt's no slouch. They had some big wins last year. Either way, the Rebels are ready to go with head coach Lane Kiffin starting this season with a fresh face at quarterback. Seems like we're saying that all the time. This one is Austin Simmons, though.
And now joining us on the program, another friend of the program. He is the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on the 24 Plus app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Mr. Stephen Willis.
We should have done a round of applause.
There we go. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah,
I got you, Stephen. I got you.
You gotta pump it up. That's our bad, Stephen. We were not prepared for the pump up action we need. We needed to get that more revved up. But I don't think we have to get you revved up. It's game week. You're probably finally ready to go.
Man, this has been the longest offseason ever. I mean, if you look at the lineup that ABC 24 has set up for Saturday, my goodness. And if you can do a multi-view, it's going to be fantastic. And it feels like we have earned this moment, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. We got a day full of great games that are going to keep you engaged all day long. But let's get started with Ole Miss. There are a lot of people that want to know, can they move forward now that Jackson Dart is gone?
The big question right there.
I think they can. I think that Austin Simmons has the potential to be the most talented quarterback that has been at Ole Miss since Eli Manning was there. Now, potential has to be realized, but he is a 6'5" quarterback, runs about a 4.5 40, has a laser rocket arm, as they used to joke about on SNL and all of that. He has all of the tools that you're looking for, but the difference is Jackson Dart was a third-year quarterback. So how quickly will Austin Simmons assimilate to what is going on and kind of get to where he's moving the offense pretty smooth? I like him to have a fairly big game against Georgia State, but if you look at his other first, like the, quote, spring game they had a couple of years ago, his debut, he struggled in that one. The first scrimmage this year, he struggled a little bit in that. So I would not be surprised if this is a middling to above average type performance. I'm not expecting something like Eli Manning did in 2001 where he completed like 18 straight passes. But Austin Simmons, he is going to be a fantastic quarterback if he just plays with himself.
Now, a lot has been made of the quarterback, the change at quarterback, but now I think something that's not talked enough about is the change at wideout. Obviously, Trey Harris was the man last year. Now, Caden Lee is going to get his first shot at being the man. Tell me what you kind of think about the wide receiver core.
Listen, this wide receiver unit, seriously, it's all new names, all new faces, and all of that. But as a room, this is the best wide receiver room that Lane Kiffin has had at Ole Miss. Now, there is no Trey Harris.
Okay.
There isn't that elite guy like Trey Harris. But Deshaun Stribling, he nearly had 1,000 yards for like the quarterback challenged Oklahoma State team last year. You have Caden Lee, who had nearly 1,000 yards at Ole Miss. You have Harrison Wallace, who was the leading wide receiver for Penn State. Now, they had that super all-world tight end, but at wide receiver, he was the leading guy. And then the second, Deuce Alexander, Isaiah Hartrung, Trayvon Ray, the transfers that got brought in, they can literally go 9 or 10 deep if they choose to do that. Now, there's not an elite person in that room. There's not a Trey Harris in this room, but there's a bunch of just below Trey Harris's in this room.
And just below, you're still pretty dang good at that point.
Yeah.
So let's talk specifically about this first game, right? What can people expect? What are you expecting to see in this? Obviously, most football people are not expecting an overly competitive game, just based on the level of player in both programs and the tradition that Ole Miss is going to bring into this. But what are you expecting to see realistically in this first game? Defensive domination or the offense getting on a roll? What are you thinking?
Well, the best part of this Ole Miss football team, believe it or not, I know that Ole Miss had 4 players drafted in the NFL, but is the front 7. Pete Golding has said multiple times during this offseason he's not expecting much of a drop-off. Now, that sounds absolutely weird when you have a Walter Nolan, a Princely Amon Mielon, and those guys graduating, but these are like 4- and 5-star players too deep on the defensive line, as they have right now. Cam Franklin, a former player of the year in the state of Mississippi from Lake Cormorant. Sontaran Perkins is coming back. He's the returning leader in the sacks in the SEC. And then you have Jam Brown and William Eccles. William Eccles was also a #1 player in the state of Mississippi, flanked by, right there, by Xavion Harris, who has had an all-SEC level camp. I want to see what this looks like because Georgia State, their offensive coordinator is Hugh Jackson. They're going to run some NFL schemes. They're going to scheme it up correctly. They have Rashad Amos. They have Jordan Simmons, 2 players that played at Ole Miss. They've got Branson Robinson, who transferred from Georgia. They've got some dudes. They're going to try to run the ball. The best part of the Ole Miss team might be the front 7. That is the area that I'm going to look at in this ballgame because if Ole Miss can shut down the run, this game's going to get over early.
Now, we heard Lane Kiffin talk about the injuries in the offseason. Does that give you any type of worry going into the season if that could be a lingering effect? Or you think the recruiting and hitting the portal that he has the depth to address anything that may happen early on this season?
This week, not so much, but next week is at Kentucky, and the week after that is Arkansas at home. This week they've gotten 4 out of the 5 people that you would have said, hey, that one's going to be a starter back. But they need to develop some continuity on the offensive line. The offensive line is a very continuity-based unit. And because of that, I'm expecting them, even if the game gets a little bit out of hand, it's going to look like Lane is running up the score. This offensive line needs reps together. So I'm expecting the starters to stay in a little bit longer than they would have otherwise because of those injuries. Now, Dalen O. Townsend, the transfer from UAB, and Terez Davis, the transfer from Maryland, they look like they're still on the shelf a little bit. When they come back, they're going to get a lot of healthy. But Patrick Kutas from Memphis in the line. The two tackles are very good, Diego Pounds and Jaden Williams. And Bryson Sanders from Chattanooga going to come in and kind of be that first forward. Became that left guard position that was the problem area that they were looking at. It looks like it's going to be P.J. Wilkins, the transfer from Charlotte, who a lot of people had him as like the sixth offensive lineman earlier in the fall. But now they just need to build continuity. I'm not worried about talent necessarily. I'm worried about learning the ins and outs before you get into SEC play, because last year Ole Miss played 4 cupcakes for whatever it was worth. They played Kentucky and they kind of got hit in the mouth. Kentucky physicaled them a little bit. So they need to get over that hump really quick against Georgia. It's going to be important that they start really, really fast and become more of a finished product, because at Kentucky and at playing against Arkansas is coming up next.
And I know we got to let you go, but do you think you can get that toughness test that you need early against Georgia State? I mean, you're talking about, like Ole Miss's defense averages something like, they gave up something like 400 total points or yards or some crap like that on the year. I mean, they were dominant on Ole Miss, whereas Georgia State gave up a ton of points to their opponents last year. So I think Ole Miss gave up less than 200 points total, and Georgia State gave up something like 400 points. So will that toughness test be able to be had in this first game, do you think?
I think they tried to do that during fall camp. Whenever they were going through training camp, they were trying to do good versus good out in the Mississippi heat during the hot weather. They tried to get the toughness there. The Georgia State game's about execution. It's about knowing exactly what to do, not having bust in MAs. If you're able to do that, they're going to handle the toughness and win that game as it is. I think the toughness for Kentucky got built a couple of weeks ago a little bit. But they need to make sure the continuity is there, because the reality is against Kentucky last year, Ole Miss couldn't run the football. And if Ole Miss could have ran the football, they'd have been in the playoffs. And it's just as simple as that.
Yeah. Stephen, we appreciate your time. You have more knowledge than you have forgotten more about Ole Miss football than I've probably ever known in my life.
Hey, I just enjoy talking about Ole Miss football. I can literally sit here and do this all day. I appreciate everything that everybody's doing, and everybody watching at home, check it out. The ABC lineup on Saturday is legit.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in just a moment, Stephen. I'm going to be down there this Saturday, and, I'm very happy that college football is back. Yeah. But I got to be honest, we know week one is just going to be a bunch of blowouts. And the thing that we can always talk about with SEC football is you're probably going to see a lot of 50-0s or 50-12 or 63-9. And so, but I'm excited to be back out at Vaught Hemingway Stadium.
Yeah, Stephen, we're going to let you go. Brother, you have a great rest of your day. We appreciate your time. And everybody, make sure you checked out the Locked On sport podcasts and shows. Just find Stephen wherever he's at. Exactly. You're going to get all the information you need. Thanks again for
Number one Ole Miss podcast.
They've handled themselves with great maturity. They've been extremely competitive. They've continued to grow. We need to do that this week and then go play.
You heard head coach Josh Heupel say, we just need to go play. It's the start of a new season in Knoxville as the Vols prep for their season opener against Syracuse.
This is the first meeting between the two teams in more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
The Vols won the last meeting in 2001 and hold a 3-0 series lead over the Orange.
But there are a lot of new faces on both teams, right? So it's hard to predict who's going to do what. That's what makes it so interesting and so fun when college football starts. There are people that don't enjoy the transfer portal era because they like the traditional college football, which is where you sign, you stay with your team for 4 years or whatever, and then that's who you're rocking. And then there are people on the other side who say the transfer portal can make it more competitive across the board. One thing it definitely does is it makes you have to learn new names and new faces every single year.
Now, we know in last week's show we told you about the new quarterback, Aguilar, and the journey he's been on, going from JUCO all the way to QB1. But I'm interested to see how he does, Ruben, because for the Vols, they're not playing at home compared to some of their other SEC compatriots. They're out in Atlanta, which it's the site of the SEC championship game. And the Vols, as a team that made the playoffs last season, they have aspirations to get back to the playoffs. And I think the most straight and narrow route to back to the championship, get into the SEC championship game.
Well, I mean, and when you're in the SEC, you always have a chance to get to the playoffs, right? Just because of the conference that you're playing in. But obviously, if you can make it to the SEC championship game, and if you win it, you're a lock. The trick with the Vols will be how quickly Aguilar picks up the offense and keeps the offense moving. Obviously, a lot of drama in the offseason with the QB1 change and somebody going to UCLA and somebody from UCLA coming over to Tennessee. So all of that became kind of a drama and a soap opera in and of itself. But now it's just the time for football. I do believe that Coach Heupel, I covered him when he was in high school, believe it or not, and when he was at OU. That's how old I am. So I'm old as dirt. But I believe his system that's in place, I believe that whoever he plugs in that spot will be able to perform in that system because he comes from Bob Stoops. You know what I'm saying? And Bob Stoops was about that system, and that's what Coach Heupel is going to be doing. He's going to be plugging people into his system to do what they're supposed to do. And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised.
Now, my question for you, Ruben, do you think that the game against Syracuse is a trap game? Now, let me tell you why it might be. Syracuse is no slouch. They're an ACC team. They were a good program last year, good head coach in Fran Brown. You know he's going to get his guys ready. This is the game for Syracuse to show that they are somebody. Do you think this is a trap game?
I think any game in the first week could be a trap game, kind of like a second round or sometimes a first round game in the NCAA tournament, right? You can overlook somebody that you think you're going to win against. The only reason I don't consider this a trap game is because I think Syracuse has enough of a name and had enough success last year that the coaching staff at Tennessee are not taking them lightly. It's not like they're playing, Niagara Falls University. You know what I'm saying? Like where you're trying to tell the team, hey, you got to get ready. They're going to bring it. But deep down, everybody knows you're going to win by 50. That's not one of these games. I would say the Georgia State game with Ole Miss has more of a potential to be a trap type game because you can overlook an opponent that you know you're supposed to beat. Yeah, they're going to beat them by 100. But I'm just saying that type of game can be more of your trap game than this because it's two marquee named programs. Even though Syracuse isn't always been a marquee in football, even though they did have one of my all-time favorites play there, it is QB. Come on now. And so this is a game that I believe Tennessee is not going to take for granted.
Do you think that coming off of last year's playoff run and the sour taste in their mouth of getting spanked by Ohio State, do you think that kind of gives them an extra onus to kind of really put that behind them? Because, yeah, you could say new season, new me, but you're as good as when we last saw you. So do you think that aspect, that cloud over their head, that Heupel's going to have the guys like, yeah, we need to reassert ourselves as a playoff contender?
I think 10 years ago when guys signed to a school, stayed with the school for 4 years, how many of those guys that are going to be making plays this year are going to be guys that were directly impacted in last year's game, right?
Fair.
In this new era of, transfer portal, it's not that same tied to your university that it was several years ago. This is more business than it used to be. And so these guys are going out there to do a job, and many of them are getting paid good money to do it.
Yeah.
And so this idea that, hey, Ohio State whooped us last year and we're coming for the payback doesn't really ring true for everybody because some of those guys weren't even there, and some of those guys are there for a paycheck. And so I think it may hold, the coaching staff can hold it as a little bit of a carrot in the air. Hey, they gave it to us last year, we're going to give it to them back. But I don't think in college football it holds the same as it used to. And so, unfortunately, whether you feel about how you feel about it or not, I kind of feel like that's what's happening right now.
What do you think about Josh Heupel? I mean,
like
he just signed that new deal.
Till 2030.
Do you think that this deal obviously cements him with the Vols for a long time? But do you think he's one of the more upper echelon coaches in the SEC?
I do. I think he's a good young up and coming coach, and I think you can add that into your betting segment that we're going to do after this.
I liked what you did right there.
You like
All right, time for a quick bet. Then when we come back, yes, we have the 901 bet segments. I got some new names for you. Stay close.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stay informed, prepared, and connected with ABC 24 and 24 Plus. Coverage that alerts you to what's coming and how it will impact you. Watch extended weather coverage on 24 Plus. The 24 Plus TV app. streaming 24/7. Local news from the team you trust on your time.
Rain showers through the day today, and we're starting.
Track how the weather will impact your day.
Rain coming in tonight into tomorrow.
Extended, continuous coverage of breaking news, live from the scene. Go deeper with in-depth interviews and exclusive reporting. All the local news you need, live or on demand. 24+, complete coverage of your local news, weather, and more.
Here comes our first batch of rain.
Some severe thunderstorms and even several tornado warnings.
I think the bigger issue is going to be the wind gusts. So you start getting some branches knocked around. You could definitely see some power outages today. Those storms could pack a punch.
It's not just the thunderstorms, it's the fact that this low pressure is so strong.
It's how big that storm system was.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stream extended coverage on 24+. Download on your TV and watch for free. When news breaks, watch 24+. See the story as it's happening. Be on the scene, faster than ever before. Live updates from the team you trust. Stream breaking news on 24+. Download free on your TV now.
What up, and welcome to the 901 Bets. Think of this as sports betting for dummies right here in Memphis. Before we get rolling, let's throw up that disclaimer. And folks, if gambling has become a problem, hit that Tennessee gambling hotline. That number right on your screen, 800-889-9789. Now, let's jump in. I want to start calling these portions where I describe betting terms bankroll basics. So let's break down a term you'll hear a lot in betting, the hedge. A hedge is when you make a second bet against your original play to protect yourself from losing everything. Think of it like insurance for your bankroll. Here's an example. Let's say you bet on the Memphis Tigers to win the AAC right now at the start of the season. Let's just say those were plus 500 odds. Months later, the Tigers are in the championship game. Now, instead of sweating it out, you can hedge by betting on their opponent. Yes, bet on their opponent. But if Memphis wins big, you still get the big cash. Now, if they lose, your hedge that you just did softens the blow because you still walk away with something. Remember what Denzel Washington said? I'm leaving here with something. Now, another everyday example. Let's say you bet on the Grizzlies to win a game and it's at plus 200 odds. Now, late in the fourth, Memphis is up big. You could hedge by live betting the other team at plus money. Either way, you've got yourself covered. Bottom line, hedging doesn't maximize your profit, but it does minimize risk. It's all about protecting that bankroll, and like Denzel said, I'm leaving here with something. Now that we're at the point in the year where our area teams are playing, I'd like to introduce you all to Bluff City Lines. And first, we're looking at Memphis football's matchup against Chattanooga on Saturday. First, the spread is sitting at 27.5. I'm rolling with the Tigers to cover that big number. That's basically 4 touchdowns. Yeah, I know. Their offense, I think they'll just simply be too much for Chattanooga to keep pace because, Chattanooga's FCS. They're not even in the same league as Memphis. Come on now. But when it comes to that total, that number is 55.5. Now remember, with the total, it doesn't matter who wins or loses. It's about the total points. I think I'm going to go the under. I think Memphis controls the game for sure. The defense locks in. And Chattanooga, they won't put too much on the board where, Silverfield might just call off the dogs and they're just kind of getting the kinks out. So I don't think they hit that 55.5 number. And one more play for Saturday, Ole Miss laying 34.5 against Georgia State. Now, I know we said earlier, these SEC teams, they like to whoop up off on teams in week one, especially because they're like nobodies. Well, I'm taking Georgia State to cover. Ole Miss is explosive, no doubt, but that's a huge spread against a scrappy Panther squad. As Steven told you, they're going to know how to hang around. They got a couple of guys from the transfer portal. So to recap, people, I like Memphis to cover under 55.5 in that same game, and I like Georgia State plus the points against Ole Miss. That's a wrap for, actually, let's talk futures for a second. I want to start calling this ahead of the line. Now, I'm riding with Joe Burrow to throw for over 4,500 yards this season. Here's why. Burrow's healthy. He's got one of the best receivers in the game in Jamar Chase and plenty of other options to spread the ball around. We know when the Bengals let him air it out, he can pile up yards fast. But the real kicker for me, that defense, PU. I don't think Cincinnati's defense is going to be very good this year. I know they just signed Trey Hendrickson, and now they finally got the first-round pick signing this contract. Doesn't mean anything to me because I think the defense is going to give more snaps for the offense, more dropbacks for Burrow, more chances for him to rack up big numbers. And if the Bengals fall behind in the games because, I don't think the defense will be good, that's not the worst thing for this bet. Burrow will be slinging it in those catch-up modes, and those passing yards still count the same. You can find this play at just about any sports book. Doesn't matter where you bet. The numbers out there, for me, I'm rolling with Burrow to clear that 4,500-yard mark. All right, let's check out a play one of our viewers sent in, my friend Tamia. We'll call this aspect of the program Bets from Bill. It's a two-leg parlay, and what they sent me, Kyler Murray over 25.5 rushing yards against the Saints, and Seattle Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker over 12.5 receiving yards against the 49ers. Let's start with Kyler. He's always a threat with his legs, and with the Saints pass rush, I actually like his chances to take off a few times. Quarterbacks scrambling against pressure usually means chunk rushing yards, and 25.5, that's not really a huge number. I can see him easily clearing that. Now, Kenneth Walker, that's the tricky part. He's not heavily involved in the passing game. Seattle usually keeps him between the tackles. 12.5 doesn't sound like a lot, and it really only takes one catch to hit it, but the question is whether he gets the target, especially against San Francisco's defense. Backs don't always see many passing opportunities. So overall, I call this parlay risky, but not crazy. Yes, hit that Kyler over with his legs, but just not too confident in Walker's receiving role, especially against that 49ers defense. If I had to predict it, I'd say Murray gets home, Walker comes up short, so I don't see both legs cashing. And just a reminder, folks, this content is for entertainment purposes only. ABC 24 and its affiliates do not encourage gambling. Viewer discretion is advised. Any betting decisions you make are solely your responsibility. We are not responsible for any financial losses or wins resulting from information presented on this program. So as I always say, do not send me your hate. If you hit, congratulations. If you don't, I'm sorry. Time for a quick break. We're back after this.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stay informed, prepared, and connected with ABC 24 and 24 Plus. Coverage that alerts you to what's coming and how it will impact you. Watch extended weather coverage on 24 Plus. The 24 Plus TV app, streaming 24/7 local news from the team you trust on your time.
Rain showers through the day today, and we're starting.
Track how the weather will impact your day.
Rain coming in tonight into tomorrow.
Extended, continuous coverage of breaking news, live from the scene. Go deeper with in-depth interviews and exclusive reporting. All the local news you need, live or on demand. 24 Plus, complete coverage of your local news, weather, and more.
Here comes our first batch of rain.
Some severe thunderstorms and even several tornado warnings.
I think the bigger issue is going to be the wind gusts. So you start getting some branches knocked around. You could definitely see some power outages today. Those storms could pack a punch.
It's not just the thunderstorms, it's the fact that this low pressure is so strong.
That's how big that storm system was.
On Weather Impact Alert Days, stream extended coverage on 24 Plus. Download on your TV and watch for free. When news breaks, watch 24 Plus. See the story as it's happening. Be on the scene faster than ever before. Live updates from the team you trust. Stream breaking news on 24 Plus. Download free on your TV now.
All right, time for a new segment we call Say What. Today's topic, college football games should be on Saturdays only. What's your take?
I think that it should.
Say what? I don't know why I agree with that.
I think it's very easy. Fridays belong to high school, Saturdays belong to college, Sundays belong to the NFL.
But you're not thinking about the big picture. Big picture is TV money, that's available on Thursdays and Fridays for college football games because there's not a lot of competition for those. You're also talking about the fact that college coaches can play on a Thursday, then go out and recruit on a Friday night game, right? Not to mention the fact that they just want that to themselves. It's a great recruiting tool. They can say we're on national television. We're going to be on TV on Thursday or Friday, whereas if they have to wait and play their game on a Saturday, they're going to get bumped by one of the major conferences.
Okay, I'll give you Thursday because Thursday is just everybody. It could be Thursday. We've got high school games. You got college games. So, okay, I'll give you Thursday. But Friday, what are we doing? Why is college playing on Friday? They should know that there's Friday night football, like Friday night lights. Like, what are we doing?
What we're doing is making money. That's what we're doing. It costs to pay these players.
What do you think the viewership is on Friday?
Doesn't matter what the viewership is. It matters what the TV rights deal is. See what I'm saying?
It just seems like a cash grab.
So it is a cash grab. There ain't no two ways around it. When this started a few years ago, it really became because at that point, a school could kind of have center stage. Nobody else was playing on a Friday, so you could be on TV on a Friday or on a Thursday. No other major college football teams were on during that time. You got center stage in that situation. Now more teams are doing it. I looked, and there's several top 25 teams playing on Thursday or Friday. You've got teams like Michigan State and Kansas, Illinois. All those teams are playing on a Thursday or Friday this week because there's money in it.
Yeah, but it's one time only. What do you think the parents feel about that?
The parents of who? The players?
I'm just saying, if I have, okay, let's use your example. So Colorado plays Georgia Tech this Friday. And so what do you think about the parents of they have a kid who's on Colorado, but they also have a kid who's playing high school football now, and then what are they going to pick?
They're going to pick the high school kid.
Exactly. And what do you think the college kid is going to feel about that?
The college, they don't care. They ain't paying for college. I can tell you that much right now. When we say, so I know you want to stand on this, and usually I'm a traditionalist. Friday night football.
College football Saturdays.
But there's too much money to be made to give up those days.
When we say Friday night football, we're talking about high school.
Not
Friday
anymore,
night lights.
Not anymore,
it's Friday night lights.
You talk about the lights being on in whatever stadium they're playing the game.
Football, high school football, HSFB.
That's it. That's it for today's Say What. We do not agree on this one, and that's okay because we agreed to disagree. He believes it should be Saturdays only. I believe there's too much money to leave it out, hanging out to dry.
Could you imagine if our Friday night football was college instead of high school?
I could, because it could happen.
No.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the 24th.
No.
Let somebody toss some money at Memphis. I bet you they play on a Friday night. Shout out to everybody who made today's show possible.
Especially Jared Robinson and Brooklyn High for their work behind the scenes, putting this show together. Big shout out to our guy, Jonah Dillon from the Commercial Appeal, and Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
They did a great job. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you on the other side.